in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to another installment of the Fragments Silicon reviews. We got 3 games up this week, and first among them is Sine Mora EX. We finally figured out how to pronounce this thing in between shows.
Yeah, it's the Latin way.
I'm like, anyway, so Sine Mora was originally the original version is actually fairly old at this point. Coming out, I think, coming out in 2012, if I'm recalling correctly, for the Xbox Live Arcade, and it proliferated on that generation of hardware. A few years, like PlayStation 3, it got a PlayStation Vita version, and even appeared on iOS. Not sure if it's still there.
But anyway, this is an upgraded re-release.
Right. So the game was originally put out by a company called Digital Reality, who was based in Hungary. And this is kind of important. We'll get to that in a bit. But and it was a collaboration with Grasshopper Manufacturer, Suda 51's company.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you don't know who those are, you don't play enough Japanese games.
Yeah.
So as you might expect, this game is kind of weird.
Yeah, and it's weird in a very unique way because we've got a very unique international co-production. Mm-hmm. Like, not to mention, just Grasshopper Manufacturer in general. Now, so with that, plus this game has a lot of Japanese industry talent behind it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the art style was designed by Marihiro Maeda, who worked on things like the Animatrix, the animated portion of Kill Bill, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I want to say the Last Exile. I know somebody on this worked on the Last Exile, because there's a lot of Last Exile in this.
So yeah, what you got here is you got mostly furry type people in a kind of World War II-ish but futuristic setting. Like, they're using planes that look like, not like futuristic planes, but like futuristic versions of World War II planes, which many of which are convertible into submarines. And there are time travel abilities, which the main one in game is the ability to just slow down everything on screen, which is good because there's some bullet hell here. And I think the thing that most stands out to me about the game is that it's plays like a fairly standard side-scrolling shooter, space shooter type thing, with some interesting touches like when you get hit, you lose your power-ups, but they fly around on the screen so you can get them back and stuff. And the sub-weapons are really powerful, and the time slowdown. But the really unique thing about this is as a side-scrolling shooter. Sorry for being all on this, but I don't remember if we reviewed the original. But
no, we didn't.
Okay, this is the first time I'd played this, so you're getting my first impressions of the game. This game has a ridiculously huge amount of story for a side-scrolling shooter. And the way that they present that, Adam had a little bit of an issue with, because a lot of the time what it is after a fairly small amount of stage, they'd have like a cutscene.
Yeah, I'm like a little, like, it caused me to quit playing the game twice, like both here and the original version. I do not like the way the main campaign There is an alternate mode called arcade that gets rid of the cutscenes, but that's not the main mode.
Hmm. Yeah, in the story mode, there's a lot of story, and they recommend
Yeah,
not doing arcade mode until you're pretty experienced.
yeah. That's because arcade mode also you're going through all 7 levels with 3 lives. So
Yeah, that would be a thing. Although it's fairly easy. You don't die as often in this as a lot of other ones, because
here's the
because
thing.
of the time travel thing, you have a timer that's constantly counting down, and I believe when you get hit, you lose some time, but if you do well, you get more back.
Yeah, this is how do I put this? Like energy based. If you want another, like, who here has played the original Sylphid? Like,
Um,
okay,
I've played other games that do this, but I can't remember what they were.
yeah. Well, it's like it's a shooter where instead of having a life, you have energy, and you will take multiple hits. It's more along those lines. Although in this case, it's time. You know, you get hit, you lose an amount of time, and that can be pretty profound considering like you can lose like 5 up to 10 seconds.
Yeah,
And
you usually start out a segment with 30 seconds.
yeah, but not always. And also, time doesn't carry over. Like time is part of your score. Like every time you get to a I don't know, checkpoint.
Yeah. You get a time mass stabilized thing, which
Yeah.
basically sets your time thing to 0 and starts
Mhm.
over at the next segment.
Which can either save your ass or kind of ruin things because there were times where I had like 70 seconds or some very high time, and to the next section, well, I'm back down to 20-30 seconds.
As someone who's bad at side-scrolling shooters, I was profoundly on the save your butt side of that.
Clearly, I'm like, yeah. And as far as length goes, main mode won't take you very long if you can stand the just huge amount of story because it's a Grasshopper manufactured title.
Yeah.
So
and the presentation of the story, aside from it being regularly interrupting your thing, is pretty interesting. It's a lot of cockpit chatter, and then between stages you get text scrolls. And the fact that in the original version all of the spoken text was in Hungarian, and I believe that's still the default option in EX.
No.
Oh, it defaults to English in EX?
Yes.
Yeah, don't do that. It really helps the atmosphere for them to be speaking a language that, no offense to people who in Hungary, most people playing this game probably don't speak. And Hungarian is, like, linguistically a very unusual language, so
don't get them started.
It helps. It really helped the feel for me to be having an unusual language spoken in an unusual setting by unusual characters.
Yeah. At any rate, the game is also very cinematic. Like, it's kind of hard to describe, and unfortunately, you might notice that we don't have footage up because, well, Petty Fan, you want to explain that one?
This game forces full screen. So for casual play, that's not a deal breaker, but my recording setup, I have to be able to play in windowed mode.
So there you go. But, it's like every time you enter a stage or enter a checkpoint, you're going to be like flying off at an angle, and it looks like everything's being poised for a movie camera. And who dropped?
It was Ogre, so we're okay, I think.
Okay. He'll be back.
And and a lot of there are a lot of bosses and sub bosses in this game.
Yeah,
there's like fairly small proportion for this kind of game if it is just firing at small fries. And the bosses are very heavily in like the Mega Man submarine boss or some of the Gradius big bosses things where okay, we fought it and we blew up all the guns on this side, and then it turns around and the other side has more guns, and then you blow up those, and then it turns sideways and there are more guns there.
And then it
That's it.
opens up a hatch and more guns come out.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yes. Like this game is very treasure-esque with its bosses.
Yeah, and the guns can get kind of pretty bullet hellish, although you do have ways of dealing with that. You can slow down time to try to weave between them, and every character you play as, and you get shuffled between characters a lot, has a sub weapon, and a few of those at least like outright delete missiles. Other ones just make you kill things so fast that you don't have to worry about. Like one of the best ones actually is basically Gradius options above and below.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting that there are 2 stories in the game. Like, when you beat the first one, you will get the alternate story, which, no spoilers, will result in it's the harder mode, so to speak, for the story campaign. And then you complete that and do well enough, you will unlock the true ultimate end. And yeah, the world is completely bonkers. And I'll be honest,
I wish
kinda
the Steam page let me show off some of the characters in this because they're kind of wild.
The sort of main character of the first part is like a bison guy.
Mhm.
And he has apparently back a few years ago, one of the countries basically nuked the other country 4 times or 3 times, and one of them failed.
Well,
And then you're trying to take revenge on something.
Your son got killed in the attack.
Yeah, but not the way you'd think. He was on one of the planes and decided not to do the bombing or something, and someone killed him.
Mhm.
It's weird. It sort of almost reminds me of the kind of storytelling you get in Ace Combat, only with furries. And the fact that they're furries is fairly low key.
And I was about to say these things don't actually have a race that's mentioned, so that's kind of like why we're calling them furries, not to be
Yeah,
derogatory or anything like that.
there are 2 nationalities, but as far as I can tell, they both are made up of kind of animal people. Yeah, it's a really weird but kind of, well, at least to me, it was a very engaging setting. But yeah,
But anyway.
like I said, there's a lot of story here, and if you don't like lots of story in your side-scrolling shooters, you might have a hard time with this.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I mentioned before the show, this is basically what happens if you make a JRPG out of a side-scrolling shooter. Large amounts of story, just with bits of gameplay in between, I guess.
Mm-hmm. At any rate, so the EX portion here. So this game was, and a bunch of other ones were picked up by IP Vacuum THQ Nordic. Digital Reality went out of business like a few years ago, and THQ Nordic has made a habit of picking up IP portfolios, and this was part of it. And with THQ Nordic, a big part of their business is remastering games for current systems. And indeed, the EX edition went out to PCs, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and even the Nintendo Switch. I'm not exactly sure how the Switch version fares against the other versions.
Well, this game doesn't look too graphically intensive, so I imagine it'd play pretty well on the Switch.
No, but on the other hand, one of the big selling points of this new version is native 4K resolution. Like if you play it on the PlayStation 4 Pro or the PC, and you have a powerful enough setup, you can play it at 4K.
I imagine an
Like,
update should be coming for the Xbox One X, but we don't actually have anything confirmed in front of us.
no, it's like it's definitely possible, and obviously this is a graphical fidelity well beyond the Nintendo Switch. In fact, the Nintendo Switch version, they were having some problems with the game. I'm not sure if this game runs in Unity or not. I don't think I saw anything
If
regards to the.
If it's Unity, they're using the paid version and have the logos removed.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think it's Unity, but I'm not exactly sure which engine it's running in. The point is, Nintendo Switch has been having problems with certain games, although this really shouldn't be one of them, since when you get down to it, it's an Xbox 360 game. But, whatever happened there got fixed, and indeed, the reason we're reviewing it is, well, so what THQ does with its re-releases is if you own the original version, you get the updated version for free. And we have reviewed some of these in the past. Like
that is, if nothing else, a nice business practice for them to use.
Yes. Like we reviewed Darksiders War Masters way back in January.
That was like the first review on this channel.
Yeah, thereabouts. It's either that or Beholder. Like, I'd have to check. Anyway, so it's kind of a regular practice, and yeah, this game has been, this re-release has been out for a few months. It's just, we've had other games. We tend to prioritize the obligations before the indulgences. That is to say, we had enough of an open spot to actually review this game. Although, admittedly, our total experience here is a bit limited, since nobody really completed the shooter or anything like that. So maybe this is a bit more of an impression-y review, but I just do not click with this game at all. Like, the structure and the narrative I find flow breaking, and just too much for a shooter. Like, there are better ways to tell your story in a shmup.
And I forget, is there an option to just skip the cutscenes, or do you have to have watched them first?
You can skip them, but that still breaks the flow of the actual gameplay.
Right. But I mean, if you just want gameplay and no story, then you can just go ahead and skip everything.
Yeah, it's like, and there are additions like according to this, 3 new versus modes: race, tanks, and dodgeball. I don't think we engaged in any multiplayer.
I think it was local only, from what I remember.
Yeah,
it's like team up based mostly.
Because
no, the new modes are probably multiplayer.
Yeah, because guess what? This is another one of those games where ping is going to make or break your game.
Oh yeah, you do not want to do anything even like remotely close to bullet hell, and I imagine even in multiplayer there are bullets with any kind of ping issues.
Mind you, calling this game bullet hell is a bit egregious because it gets kind of intense, but it's not true bullet hell.
Like, oh no, it's not constant. It's just there are some attacks that are very bullet hell-like.
Yeah.
If you go through things fast enough, it won't happen. But if you're not doing well, you can get overwhelmed quickly.
Well, I think near the end, though, it can get a little more insane. But that's
what
should happen near the end of a video game.
Yeah, it approaches bullet hell, but trust me, it's not like, say, an Ikaruga or a Toho.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bullet hell compared to, like...
maybe compared to R-Type or Gradius.
And your hitbox is really, really forgiving.
Yeah, and the threats to your ship are in fact at least as much that enemies are shooting at you as it is that there are just bodies there. Although one of the worst navigational hazards I ran into is just, oh hey, worm chunks.
Right. And let's see. Really, not a lot was done to bring this game up to modern specifications because, well, it was already like an HD title, and it's a simple shooter rather than say, a big epic 3D platforming adventure game like Darksiders or anything like that.
Or what Namco did with the Dot Hack GU.
Yeah, more on that in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like, there are some additions. We've mentioned some, like, there are new challenge levels. I barely was interested in the main mode, so I really didn't check out the supplementary modes. Because it kind of tells you this is all the advanced stuff. This is the stuff you go into after you've done the mission mode. So there's quite a bit here to keep you occupied after you've done the campaign. So that's good. It's just, getting back to my central critique, I also find the gameplay a bit sluggish. I know some people have claimed that this is really fast. I'm like, as far as shmups go,
it depends how long of a shmup fan you've been around. Like, fairly new age shmups, yeah, this is kind of fast. But if you're like, from Genesis or NES era, this is gonna feel slow.
And you're not going to get pixel perfect maneuvering because the pixels are too small.
Yeah.
It sounds flippant, but I feel like, a lot of games like Mega Man, where everybody's all about really sharp lines of things, that's gotten harder and harder as resolutions get higher and hitboxes get rounder.
Yeah. Keep in mind, hitbox mastery is, usually important for shmups because, that kind of indicates where you get hit. And it's especially important in bullet hell because, your hitbox isn't necessarily your sprites, or your ship. Here, your ship is your hitbox. That's often the case in polygonal shooters. Like, let's see. At any rate, price. This game comes in at $10. If I'm recalling.
I think that's a good price. I mean, if it's something that sounds appealing to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if this was more in its original incarnation. But I suppose that's immaterial because the original version isn't available, at least on PC. It's probably still on the old storefronts. Like if you want if you want the game on the PlayStation 3, it's probably still there. But it might not be. Hang on. Let me see if it's on the PSN. See them. Let's see. Yeah, it looks. Yeah, you can still get the original version on the PlayStation 3. So, if you have an older system, you can get that. This game is available in a lot of places, even more so now with the EX version. And yeah, $10 is a good non-sale price. It is worth noting that at least the original version went on sale fairly often. And yeah, there's not much more I can say about the pricing. Like, it's about where I would put it. Maybe $15 at most, but $10 is, pretty much the perfect price point, for non-sale purposes.
Yeah, it's not super long, so being too much more would probably be a lot, but it's fairly full featured for what it is, and there are quite a bit of alternate modes and stuff. So
Yeah. Anyway, any last words on Sine Mora EX?
Not really. It's a game.
I
Like-
liked it, though I can understand why you didn't.
Yeah. So kind of mixed opinions here, but seems to be solid enough for a purchase.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that'll about do it for our first review. Coming up next, Deadbeat Heroes.